Hey, I'm Dave Filoni, Supervising Director of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and we're going to talk about the Slaves of Zygerria. Now, what's really kind of special to me about this arc is that it reunited four of us who actually began the Clone Wars, Killian Plunkett, Jason Tucker, Henry Gilroy, and I. We were all on the original staff of Clone Wars way back in 2005. Henry had since left, but we brought him back to do this slave arc that he wrote as a comic book, because once he was not on the show, he couldn't get enough Star Wars and wrote a bunch of comic books, and George liked them enough that now we made them into episodes. So let's reunite this bizarre group of people to talk about Henry's stories. So there we are with our traditional opening once again. What's our cookie? Do you even remember the cookie?
Where we are going always reflects where we came from.
Well, you read it
Well
off
done.
the screen.
Well
It's not
done
like you
there.
remember that. Like, is that the cookie you wrote, or did we change it?
No, that was pretty much the cookie.
That's pretty much
Yeah,
it.
that's pretty much. You might have tweaked it a little.
You know, kind of most interesting right off the bat is both you and I thought, wow, this will be a really interesting experiment, because it's the first time something that qualifies as EU is really brought into, you know, the series in a large form. Not to mention things like Ayla Sakura or Alcun Voss or different things that have gotten appropriated. I mean, like a direct, this story exists here in the EU, and George saw it and says, now I want to bring it up.
Especially from
to
a
the
writer
screen.
from the first season, which was great. Too.
That's to be honest.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why it was possible at all.
Yeah, ironically, the story, I originally wrote the germ of the story while I was working on season one.
That's
And
right.
if you recall, the
Rejected.
time it was a little
Rejected.
too complicated for season one to pull off visually and production wise. So it was great that we got an opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
By the way, this ramp, Pouchon veneer and painted, one of the best textures in the show.
Yes.
That ramp.
Yeah.
Period. Just thought I'd point that out.
It is a nice ramp.
Okay, so go ahead. Killian, talk to me about the way this looks.
All right, so back when this was going to be a comic, Henry asked if I would sort of help out with the designs.
That's
I said no, I'm too busy making the show. Sorry, and didn't.
I
really-
did a cover for one. Though,
You did,
And so
yeah.
did you.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes, I did.
I did
whenever-
issue number one.
At the time, I think I was number 2. When the time did come to adapt this, we sort of had to pretty early on decide, were we going to follow the visuals from the comics and how everything looked, or were we going to do our own thing? So we kind of did our own thing, which is usually how it goes.
I think some of the artwork that was in the comic book resembled what we'd already done with the Alina people.
Yeah.
And we wanted, you know, instead of that Angkor Wat look, we wanted something that was much more, you know, I really like the idea of their horns, and that maybe the Togrudans had really patterned a lot of their architecture and style after those shapes. And the idea that they were an artistic colony meant that I wanted to have a lot of graceful shapes, a lot of, I think it might have been Chris Glenn that came up with the idea of having a lot of these big kind of almost like sheets of cloth hanging up there,
sails.
sails,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that all, you know.
Yeah. Now, was it described as being on a cliff in your script, or was that?
No, it was actually in a valley, a peaceful valley.
Yeah,
but I mean, but I
did away
think
with that.
but
The
you-
cliff is so much more dramatic. I mean, you can't but the village in a valley.
But you
What are you,
really
Elrond? I mean, come on.
You really get the sense, though, of these Togruta colonists as people who are really completely involved in the arts.
Yeah.
They're just a community of artisans and
Yeah.
who are
It's like
obsessed with
Sedona.
beauty.
It was like
Exactly.
Sedona. That was the lighting value we were
Yes.
using a lot. Obviously, there's good lighting there.
Sure,
Wow.
it reminds me of like a Maxfield Parrish painting, just the way that the hues kind of come so
Yeah.
bright and
Well, another
warm.
reason that the buildings were so kind of out there was that we knew we were going to go to Zygerria as well,
That's
and
right.
it had to look different, really different to.
Now
the
that
next-
brings up a whole other thing, is that in the comic book, this guy is a basilisk, and we already had a big basilisk in season 4.
Ponkrell.
Ponkrell
So-
on our show.
So
was his name Darts Tanar then in
Yeah.
the comic? Yeah.
I believe it was.
No,
right?
actually, it was a different name in the comic, but obviously
What was it in
the
the comic?
comic were 6 issues, so some of the material had to be cut
Yeah,
out.
okay.
So.
Wow.
Well, I mean, there were several problems. One of which was Ahsoka was written as kind of like the movie Ahsoka in the comic, and that it was happening in continuity of the comic right not long after the film.
Yep.
So she was a very young, more naive character,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
bratty. And then Ventress was still in it as Dooku's apprentice. And one of the first discussions we had was, well, we can't have Ventress in this, and I want to keep everything kind of moving forward in the TV series. So Ahsoka's got to act
Oh, okay,
and be a
yeah.
little bit older. And then we couldn't have the Basilisk guy.
Right.
So we had to make a really big Zygerrian guy and make it clear that the only reason Obi-Wan's in this fight is that he's allowing this guy to kind
Yeah,
of beat him
Stalin.
up. he's stalling for time.
Yeah,
so
Absolutely.
Well, shall we discuss your surrender again?
This was Kyle's episode, right? Like.
yeah, this is
directed,
Dunleavy.
Yeah, Dunleavy.
Really well done.
Yeah, it is. well
Some
done.
great fighting. We missed the whole thing with the what's that creature?
What was it?
Your guy, the squid, octopus, snail.
Oh
slug
yeah,
thing.
Right,
this thing,
right.
the Blixus.
The Blixus.
There he
Yeah,
is.
the Blixus,
There you
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Mhm.
The pinchers are great.
Actually, great design. It's kind of pretty much what I had in mind. I think I described it as a scorpion meets an octopus. So you guys.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time editing this sequence actually.
This
trying
was
to do
really
it
good. This part here really always works, where he falls and grabs. And look at that.
Poor Blixus.
It was that shot that I think
He's
was
like,
it.
he lands in some trees.
Yeah.
He lands in
He's
some
okay.
trees.
He's
He's okay.
okay.
These things are resilient.
Yeah.
Really resilient.
Sure, he doesn't just land in a pot of boiling
really-
water. He's bright orange and delicious.
I love the
by the
scene
end.
right here where Ahsoka's like, okay, we got him, everything's under control, but Anakin's really tapping into that childhood anger he had against the slavery issue, and he just grabs this guy. He's ready to kill him.
Where are they?
And I like that Ahsoka's like surprised. Okay,
Yeah,
she's
he
seen
would
him
have
mad
killed him
before,
He
but
would have killed him if Ahsoka wasn't there. right?
absolutely.
The Jedi will not stop us this time. We'll see about that.
I think this was the first time we saw the Takora, is it?
Yeah.
The ship? I
Yeah.
think it is. Was,
Yeah, I like
and
this ship.
Yeah, it worked out
It's
really
a
well.
flying
so-
sand crawler.
It's really cool.
is what I really wanted it to look like.
Yeah, we've used it a few times since.
It's got the right kind of shape vocabulary for Star Wars. It really does. And this city, I mean, again, we had to build a whole civilization here
Zygerrian capital.
on every planet we're going to. So we went for what a kind of Babylonian look.
Yeah, you found a bunch of ref that you really liked and said,
Yeah.
let's just stick to this.
It's so easy now to do searches and stuff. You don't need those mountains of resource books and National Geographics anymore. I mean, they still come in handy. And you know, at Skywalker, we actually have a great asset in that. We have tons of research books that George has collected over the years from various film libraries from studios.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of ways we can research different cultures and different architecture. And I actually extended this shot because I liked the reveal of the city so much.
Here's a question for you, Killian. How many lightsabers can R2 hold?
I don't know, as many as the writer says.
That's right, as many as the plot
Very
requires.
good.
Yeah.
As many as the plot requires.
Remind me why I'm the one playing the part of the slave?
I tried it once. I wasn't any good at it. Besides, the role of master comes easily to me.
Really? Well, this time try to be convincing at it.
I thought these dragon lizards actually were really executed to perfection.
Oh yeah.
Much.
Yeah.
This was a
Better
fun thing
improvement.
Layout did with this little knife fight here.
It's great.
Probably one of the questionable things we've done,
Yeah.
but
Was that in the script? Did you say there must be monkeys knife fighting?
Knife
this
fighting,
thing?
yeah.
No. Oh, actually, there was supposed to be some sort of action, but
But you didn't specify.
I was really
Knife fight.
really wanting to see the oppression of the slaves in this marketplace
how,
to get a sense of it.
Gilroy's using a serious writer's tone.
Yeah.
He's very,
I can tell.
he's leveled it out. He's like, I was looking for the oppression, the feeling of suffering.
And nothing says oppression like monkeys
emote.
knife fighting. So when
Really,
you see that, you're like,
really gives you some good oppression.
Here's a
there.
question.
Laser whip.
I in the comics, I had always seen
Yeah.
the Zygerians or thought about them as humanoid or
Yeah.
mostly human, but red hair. I think I kind of drawn on their inspiration of them being from a EU source.
Yeah.
That they were. I always kind of perceived them as like the Harkonnen
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
of
Oh,
the
wow,
Star Wars universe.
okay.
Anyway, so what made you decide to make them kind of the coyote people, sort of?
I just thought that humanoids, we have so many of them. I wanted to get something that was a little bit stranger looking, and you know, as I like wolves, and coyotes are a similar family tree. So I thought coyotes were mischievous and sneaky and tricky, that they were tricksters. I kind of wanted that trickster. I'd actually originally developed that look for that origin of Ahsoka story that I've been working on, which involves a trickster, and that's where I first drew a coyote person, and I thought that would be a good character then when we were doing Zygerrian. So we talked about it, because in the comic book, the thing about them with the little spikes on their faces and the orange hairs, it tends to look like typically what you see on a TV show when they're making an alien, which is they glue some kind of prosthetic to their face and then give them wacky hair. And I wanted, since we're animated, we should go a little bit farther. In the end, I think we could have pushed them even further. Like, I think the Queen's design works really well. And I think the longer faced Zygerrians tend to work more with the kind of coyote
guards,
look.
yeah.
But really, their ears should come right out of their head. And it was a tricky one. But we tried to keep certain things from the comic, like the horns
Yeah.
and the kind of orange tone. So we tried to kind of do a blending of the two and just make it a little more exotic. This scene, I always liked this idea.
Yeah,
this
the arena scene. was
big
great.
arena scene. The texture painting in this room, the detail that everybody did is just phenomenal, and all the walls and the painted feeling. And
I think her design is terrific too. There's so much life to her. She really feels like she's there.
well, that went through a couple rounds too.
And it's
Yeah.
another Darren Marshall costume. Darren is
That's right.
Oh, really?
Marshallini.
Daron Marshallini.
I believe in the comic book, actually, Ahsoka's in a much more revealing
Yeah.
outfit.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen.
No.
That wasn't my intention.
That's
Sure
right. That
it
made Wired magazine, right?
Yeah, no more tube tops here.
Yeah.
That Ahsoka costume is really good. I mean, we obviously can't use it again, but I
They're
thought
pretty
it
good
looked-
one though. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked really cool.
Well, I thought it fit your description of a princess better. The character she was trying to portray.
Oh, absolutely.
It
Yeah.
looked more like that's what she wore regally.
Well, it's
Yeah.
very, Alex Raymond. I mean, it looks like a Flash Gordon outfit, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick edited this episode. He did a really good job with this scene.
Yeah. Yeah, this is this classic serial Star Wars action. Yeah, you can hear the John Williams score trumpeting out as they,
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
right here. It's a Jedi,
Yeah, it was great. We made this a lot quicker at one point. It was really slow in this area.
Looks like your slave empire is finished. Again.
I loved all the little TV monitors that Brian O'Connell, who directed this, he was able to always incorporate that in the background. So you can always see there are layers to everything that's going on. I like laser whips.
Yeah, it was something new that we hadn't done before, and I was actually hoping that you wouldn't get to it before this episode. So
What, laser whips?
yeah,
Yeah. Did you see the physicality of them?
no,
The way we make them different than a lightsaber is that they actually have a cord in them, and when they pull the trigger and whip it, there's actually a cord that comes out. So it's not like they're pure energy. There's actually a
There's a physical-
heated metal
Oh,
physical
okay.
cord in there.
Okay.
But because it's got energy around it, the lightsaber can't cut it.
gotcha.
Kind of like the Magna Guard staff. But then it recoils back into the staff. But that's, again, just always an effort to keep a Jedi lightsaber unique.
So, did you write the thing where Ahsoka almost kills the guard that's sort of toying with her?
Yes, like she just kind of
Doesn't-
throws him off the edge. She doesn't mean to. It was more
She doesn't mean to,
No,
she
no,
just does that.
Because he basically survived. He caught himself. So
Oh, he caught himself,
Yeah,
did he?
he
Okay.
did.
So you're saying Ahsoka meant to do it and he just caught
No,
himself?
but she knew he would.
There you go.
She knew that he wasn't going to.
There
She
you go.
knew.
Yeah.
How did she know?
You gotta plug a hole.
Because then she would have just done like this and stopped him from falling.
This episode, this is the third and final part, I believe now, right?
Yes, there it is.
Oh yeah,
first-
that took 4 seasons to get
First
done.
and
Wow.
only
Yeah.
time that
We've ever
that's
seen the
happened
solar
on this
sail
show.
with a solar sail.
Long have Sith empires been built upon the backs of slaves. To carry on this tradition, we will require millions.
In my mind's eye, I don't know, the
Yes.
origin of the story, I always thought of like, what do the Sith want with these particular slaves? What is it about the people of Kadavo? I'm sorry, the Kiros, the Togruta. And Sidious, because he sees things going his way, eventually he's going to want to, have these fantastic, great monuments built to his name. So in my mind, he's like, they built this beautiful world, and they can, once they're slaves of mine, they'll build whatever I want.
So he's hiring interior decorators already? Seems premature.
Sith expansion,
Yeah.
interior decorators, yes.
Whip everything but their
You
fingers.
know that big statue they pushed over at the end of it? Yeah,
That was them.
That was them.
That was them.
That was them. Slave labor
That's
built
right.
that statue. You can't get good slaves in the Empire these days,
Punishment for a slave who disobeys her master.
That's enough, Dooku.
Who's the voice of the Queen?
The Queen is played by Raja Barudi, and it's actually the only role she's played on Clone Wars, which is unique for us because we tend to use a lot of the same actors, but we wanted a really unique voice. She stole the death scene. The death scene where the Queen dies, it is the longest death you've ever seen. I mean, it was incredible. I think we cut it down when
Oh
you
yeah.
did the
Oh yeah. We
just
had
to
cut down.
keep
It was
it.
like,
But I mean, it was a whole act.
it was
that
pretty
death
dramatic.
scene.
Yeah.
You were right, Skywalker. I am a slave, just as you are.
Saving the day.
Attack on Kadavo. There's Plo Koon.
Saving the day.
I put Plo Koon into the story because I knew that Dave would have to make this into the show.
Yeah. Now he's got the Wolfpack bracers now, and the Wolfpack has cooler looking outfits than they used to. Better armor, better helmets.
Oh, goody. You know, like we couldn't use anyone else.
Yeah, you know what
We
though?
won't
This
back.
is a spoiler. The coolest helmets that the Wolfpack wears are the desert helmets.
Oh, yeah, but that's season.
That's season, I don't know, in the future. But those are the coolest. And I will say, watching it today, because of watching this footage,
Yeah.
it's startling how just subconsciously these helmets start to look more and more like wolves. I mean, these things got they come more and more forward. We're talking about stuff that
Has nothing
audience
to do
isn't
with
going to
this.
see for a whole season. I mean, it's off in the future, so don't worry about it. It'll be cool. I'll have the 500 First guys will make it like this one, and that's really the whole reason why I keep making new helmets.
I know.
Then they gotta make them.
yeah.
I got that awesome new one on my desk. It's not painted yet.
Yeah.
All right. Back to your thing. It's your moment. What's happening now?
So the Jedi are trying to free the Kyros slaves from Kadavo, and the bad guy here is basically opening the floor up so he can drop them all to their doom.
One of the original things was that a like-minded plot to this happened on Ryloth.
Yeah, originally this story was written, or this climax was written on Ryloth. And
On Ryloth.
We even have some
With
designs.
Mace, and I had some
Yeah.
early sketches of like a prison that hung over a lava field.
Yeah,
Because
that's right.
Lord knows you can't be a bad guy without saying, well, I kind of want to base, that it's
Over a
suspended over a
volcano.
lava field, right? So, but by that point, we had done so many bases sinking into lava fields on this show. Like we were on Mustafar.
That's
right.
right.
We got a whole
Yeah.
place that sinks into the lava field. I think and then we had been on the Citadel. There's another base
More
on like
lava.
a yellow lava-like field. So I was like, God, we just can't have this. How about a bottomless pit? That's terrible enough. Like they just drop these suckers off into oblivion, and you hear them screaming, and it then disappears into the nothingness, which was actually pretty terrible.
Well, there's plenty of stuff in this. There's Rex killing someone by throwing a spear
That's
right
right.
through them.
That's right.
Was that in the script?
Gosh, you know what? I can't remember if that was in the script.
No,
I don't think so.
No.
I think
He ended up, the chair ended up going into the.
Because I added that line.
Okay.
I
yeah,
know
that-
Jedi.
Yeah, I know Jedi.
That's the whole thing. But I have to give you this moment because he loves this one of his gripes.
All right, let's
I
hear
gotta
it.
here comes a writer gripe.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody prepare yourself. This is what I have to deal with on a regular basis. So this is not the ending to the comic.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
This is a different ending.
Right.
So go ahead and tell the world, if they haven't read your comic, what the ending to the comic
Well,
is, because I know you want to. Go ahead.
The story was always about Anakin and him coming to terms with being a slave and getting past it, growing past it. And somehow his saving these people or freeing them was going to help him move on himself. Also, the story had an Obi-Wan Kenobi component where he could never really understand Anakin's whole attachment to the slavery issue because he's never had to experience it. So in this arc, Obi-Wan experiences it from a personal point of view, and that really changes how he looks at Anakin and how he understands why Anakin has held on to it. So the last scene in the comic was Obi-Wan acknowledging this to Anakin and saying, I've dismissed this in the past, but I understand why.
And there was a component to the idea, and we had gone back and forth about this one too, early on, in fact, you and I, about Ahsoka and these people and how much would she identify with them just because they're Togruttans. Just because they're Togruttans doesn't mean that she would identify with them more than if they were like Twi'leks.
Right.
I mean, I guess a little more, but she's supposed to be a Jedi. But
She says they're my people, but
Right.
it's never really
Is she
pointed out
from
whether is
there?
she from the
We
colony
don't know.
or they're just.
Now, I'm going somewhere with all of this. amazingly. You know, we shot it. That original ending is shot.
Really?
It's not animated, and it's not lit, but it's shot. The thing I do like about it was that they're back on Kyros at the end of it.
Right. At the end of the comic, the people of Kyros decide that they can't just be an artistic colony. They really have to. You just can't stand and avoid the war. You've got to basically
22
learn how to
minutes.
choose a side. Yeah, choose a side.
22
and fight.
minutes.
Plus, you're saying this is the story arc where Anakin becomes a well-adjusted and happy person, and everything is fine now. I mean,
No,
there it
absolutely
is.
not.
See, there it is. See,
Here's
there
the
it
thing.
is.
It's like, but
Look
even
for Killian in the form.
even
You're
the
just talking about
Queen-
more reconciliation.
Sure,
with,
and the Queen even
with the-
challenges Anakin's whole perception about what slavery is.
Your Jedi, the Grand Republic, even your friends.
I don't see commitment as slavery.
Oh, it is. When it comes at the cost of yourself.
He chooses to be a Jedi, so he makes a sacrifice willingly, where a slave doesn't have a choice. They can obey or die.
Yeah, plus it deepens Anakin's character on some level, like, or makes it.
Yeah, but I don't know how well adjusted he is after that.
No,
Yeah.
this
Well,
absolutely
no,
not.
He's not well
When you look
adjusted,
at the
yeah.
movies,
No.
you know, I think challenging those ideas about Anakin and slavery and his mother and what happened to her and what his life was are very important ideas, and I think that's why it's good that we are touching upon them. And I think, you know, the challenge for us creatively is that, unfortunately, we can never solve any of those problems fully. We can present them. We can start him to a path of understanding and hope that the audience understands that which the character of Anakin Skywalker cannot. That he can never take the final full step to being this more enlightened person because he keeps getting pulled back down.
Anakin has struggled to put his past behind him.
Don't worry. I'll keep an eye on him.
Yes, make sure you do.